Good day, everyone. Before I will start my speech, let me ask you a question. Are we capable to handle climate crisis and how we value the biodiversity? In this slide, I will present to you the overview of the biodiversity and how it can affect not just for us humanity, but also the other ecological factors that inherited with. So, in the lessons of the past, we can overview the Earth as the utopian diversity of natural resources. Seems to be recognized as the permanent fixtures, but as time goes by, the vulnerability has higher capability of collapse. Taking a glimpse of jungle, it will turn into a desert, the life of reefs. It will become as a lifeless rocks. Without the disastrous impact of asteroids and volcanic eruptions, the form of cataclysmic events. What portions of ecosystem can generate the strongest weapon and how it can weaken to the world of change? This question simply denotes the extent of biodiversity. In my own personal definition, it is a collective strands of species that grows in a well-adapted area where we can find the geographical location as a full of nature that organisms will be suitable to have a genetic variations to further increase the population capacity. Amazon forest, one of the world's biodiverse area, specifically to the tangless liana vines, for example, it crawl up from the forest floor of the canopy, interweaving with treetops that were grown into a wooden stems, resulted to provide seeds and the creation of herbivores, causing tapir and agouti to disperse the seeds that managed to grow into another organism. Leftovers, for instance, will further consumed by a bunch of insects that leads decomposition and recycle of nutrients, the formation of rich soils. As reconstructed to the highlighted portions, the evolutionary process suggested that humanitarian actions are considered to be the greatest cause of biodiversity. Shall modernity visions the possible causes of biodiversity loss? So I will take you the time to overview the three main effects of biodiversity loss, and one of that is pollution. One of the anticipated harmful events, it is a notion of addressing the toxic substance to the ecosystem. Shall habitat resources will decline, in which resulted some species to move another capable area. In the 2014 study, for instance, the 2010 Deepwater Horizon oil spill project, in which located at the Gulf of Mexico, tallied 12% of brown pelicans and more than 30% of laughing gulls, resulted in 800,000 birds considered as death. We have also the invasive species. Due to the disruption of their colony, the non-native species would colonize the other ecosystem, which will result into a better competitors rather than the native species. It would cause an alarm to have excessive food consumption that adopted new changes. For instance, if the native species has no longer defensive actions, so therefore there could be a possibilities of elimination could exist. Invasive species could also manifest them to be considered as prey. And the next one is we have the main portion, or the most highlighted one, is the association of the climate change and global warming. This is also an obvious the worldwide causes or the negative impact, and another significant humanitarian causes that generate movement between these two elements immensely increase the Earth's average and air temperature for almost 2 centuries. If I am going to giving you a glimpse of their existence, it will influence of rising concentrations, namely the carbon dioxide, the methane, and other gas or the greenhouse gases. With more heat availability, the patterns of temperature and rainfall has possibilities to change. shall the disastrous events occupies to the affected areas. According to the ecologists, the habitat loss are the largest causes of biodiversity loss. Shall climate change recognized to be a rivalry for almost a 21st century progression? And also, as an advocate of biodiversity, we as humanity needs to take serious actions and strategic plans to further deplete the existence. And how? By simply putting trash in the garbage bin, lower consumptions of energy, manage to pursue eco-friendly accountabilities. So these assumptions detail the simplest intervention regardless of the issue. But the main point here is the world needs protection. It must implies or depict the marine and land ecosystem as part of biodiversity committed to have exigencies of guidance to their respective habitat. One of that is the NGO or the non-government organizations should enhance their action plans and interventions to bounce back to its own value. Government officials as well shall hear the voices of biodiversity loss, commits to allocate their purposive responses to address the aforesaid problem. The most important strategy is also the humanitarian actions, should assess and determine our environmental concerns by observe and obey the regulation of biodiversity. Above mentioned assumptions are acquainted. Always remember that global intervention starts with humanitarian actions, the only basis if it was profound occurred or not. And I hope that this speech could be enlighten you to have your own strategic plan on how we can able to bounce back the value of biodiversity and also the ecosystem that can happens only to us as humans to take first action to solve this non-stop problem. Thank you.